So here we have two Razer mice, DeathAdder on the left, DeathAdder on the right. You can see there's a couple differences. I'll bring it a little closer. And of course there's some of the obvious. The new version has these extra buttons. The notches are different. And yeah, it's kind of interesting actually, because I know that on the one hand, this one on the right, the newer, this is the DeathAdder Elite, is sort of better in every way. This one is kind of vintage, from 2013. And yet, I have to say that in almost every way, I think the build quality is actually better on the older mouse. And that might be part of why, I know people have really kind of criticized Razer. And at first I didn't get it because I had only used this stuff. And once I started buying some of their new stuff, all of a sudden I understood why they're getting so much hate. Because, yeah, the new one just feels cheaper. So first thing, it's a small thing, but if you look at the ports, so I understand that a gold USB port doesn't really matter, doesn't really make a difference, and yet it's sort of part of the brand. It's part of, I don't know, the suspension of disbelief. It's just, it's nice, right? It's, as you can see on the new one, they don't do that. It's just, regular metal. It does have green, which is kind of cool, whatever, but it just feels cheaper, like you just tell. And I get it, a gold USB port doesn't do jack shit, but I think it was part of the whole overall, feeling of quality in the brand. So okay, going a little deeper though, if you pick up the new one, it's much lighter than the old one. The old one has a little bit of heft to it. Now I understand light mice are kind of very popular now, so that could, be intentional, but it just feels cheaper, and the plastic just feels cheap. In particular, the top part is very smooth on the new one, as where on the older one it has like a very slight soft texture, and it just feels better in the hands. Now I will say on the side you have rubber grips. You have rubber grips on both sides, and that's pretty similar, the old and the new. In fact, the new might be a little better. But going further, this top shell just feels very cheap, and the click also doesn't feel as consistent as with the old one. It's just a more satisfying click, and see that the right click, it's not consistent. It doesn't feel the same, and I think it's because the plastic's cheaper. I'm not sure about the switch. I know these have Razer mechanical switches, whatever that means, but honestly the old one just feels better. But the new one, of course, has better specs. The inside, the optical sensor is much improved. They also have bigger Teflon feet in the old one, and that's definitely an improvement. So yeah, I think it's kind of a shame actually that one of the best mouse, on the one hand, yeah, it's gotten better, but it feels like it's lost something. And I think it's just part of good product design is really thinking about all the materials and all the things that go into the mouse. So admittedly day to day, I use the new one now, but this is still a trusty backup, and I don't know, sometimes I like it more. Also, just to compare, the shapes are mostly the same. Here I have a Mamba. This is the first gen Mamba, just so you can see the difference in shape. They're very similar, but the Mamba is flatter, as where the DeathAdder has more of an arc. It's a little bit taller. So you can see, well, this is a little hard to see, but yeah, the curve is more extreme in the DeathAdder, and that's the same in both of them. So, yep. And of course, this is the first gen Mamba. It has a laser sensor rather than an optical sensor, for better or worse. But again, and this being a premium mouse is interesting. So it's much heavier than either of these. I think it was made around the same time, maybe a few years after this, 2013. But it feels very nice. Like the texture is probably the best out of all of them. This top feeling. If the DeathAdder Elite feels the cheapest, the old DeathAdder somewhere in the middle, then the Mamba feels the best. Also the rubber grips is really nice, side buttons are nice. So it's a really good mouse. It's kind of a shame that the laser sensor sometimes isn't so great, and it is heavy and the battery life doesn't last. So I know there's a new Mamba, maybe it fixed some of those things. I haven't tried it yet. But anyway, it's just interesting to see how products change over the years. And yeah, the cable, the braided cable feels pretty good on both. Connection feels pretty good, but yeah, the side buttons feel fine. Maybe a little better on the new Razer and the Mamba than the old one, but pretty much the same. So yeah, and of course both of these are RGB, and then as for the 2013 only glows green. But there's an overview of some of the mice. Cable is actually stiffer on the older braided. The newer Razer it feels better. The cable, the braiding is looser and it just feels more fluid. So when you move it around, it's not going to stick. As we're here, you still get these pinch points, and it could be because it's older, but actually I kind of think about it because I've owned it. I remember it's always been this stiff, and so the new, more flexible braided cable is a nice improvement.